So this is Friday, November 16th. This is, we're at the home of George Hall on Ridge Road, and we're here from the museum to reminisce with George about his memories of World War II and what life was like and what his service involved. And Ellen Richardson, Lisa Cannon, and Keir Johnson is doing the filming.
All right, George, you told me that you came or you joined the Navy. Was that at the time there was what do they call that?
Recruitment?
No, it wasn't recruitment. You either had to join the Coast Guard, you had to join the Navy,
Or the Army.
Conscription?
or the Army. No, it was another name. What was it, George? What was the name of that? You had a choice. I'll think of it in a minute. You talk about it, you can't remember. I can't remember either. But you joined the military in what year?
I joined the military and Navy in September the 3rd, 1942. And we were, the J.J. Queenie come up, he was a retired naval officer, and he retired, but they brought him back because he had 33 years service, and they put him up here to be in charge of this base. And there wasn't any buildings on it at all. No runways to mount, nothing. They were in the process of putting them down. And they enlisted, I think it was 6 men. I got a list of them there. And I knew them all personally. And they're all dead but me. Now I'm the last one I'm left. The one started that base. And we done duty on there. They put us up. We rented a place for us on Chincoteague, give us living expenses. But one man stayed there all night. And was nobody but contractors there, and they were working 24 hours a day. And we watched that base like that, and it was nice. But that was September 3rd, 1942, and we stayed there, and they kept adding after about maybe 2 months. I think it was six of us there, but I know them all dates. I got it on that paper.
Only 6 men?
6 men. And we done duty every 6th night, and it's all night long. I had to walk out there.
24 hours.
We had a sawed-off shotgun and a 45 on our side.
Whoa.
And what were you patrolling for? What were you?
Well, the Navy was starting to bring 100 octanes in there and setting up these tanks, and they were afraid somebody would blow them up.
Oh.
And there were also, in fact, they started adding men to us. We went there the 3rd of September, but before Christmas, we did increase it up probably 20, 25 in the Navy men there. But it was contractors everywhere running 24 hours a day and all kinds. But in April, the following year, 43, the base was commissioned. I was right there when they commissioned it. And just right after that, a few days after that, George Bush was the president of the United States later, but I didn't know it then. I walked all around him, and they had 12 TBF torpedo bombers. They were carrier planes. The wings fold up on them. And then we stayed in a little Quonset hut there about maybe 15, 16 foot square. It could have been just slightly longer. It had 6 bunks in there, double-decker bunks. And we'd sleep in there, and that first one, we slept in there on them. And of course, the place was increasing. There was more than one man there.
Right.
And the boy would be on duty over top of me, and he'd be on duty, and it'd be snowing, and they had fold up old wooden
Yeah.
for like they had a big carnival.
Yeah.
And the snow would beat through there and be on my bed. I'd reach up on top bunk and pull the mattress snow.
So you can keep the snow from getting onto you.
Oh, it's weird.
Yeah,
Is that better?
I don't know you were going to ask.
and but George Bush come around, and when that was the first squadron of planes come in there. There was a lot of planes flew in and out,
Right.
SNGs and different things. And but George Bush's squadron was first one. After he left, they got B-24s in there, and while they were there, 3 of them had crashes. And in the meantime, they built up a fire department. And that boy I showed you in the picture,
Russell Thornton.
Yeah, Wilson Groton. He was chief, and I was next man to him. And we're all auto mechanics, started. And anyway, but we had a Seagrave truck come around, and I used to drive her every other night. And they had 2 planes, B-24s cracked up. One of them was one overshot the runway and went over that little gut mix in there.
Right.
You had to go to Wattsville to come in there.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, that when I got in there with that Seagrave truck, we had foam on her, so you couldn't just throw water on her on a gas fire.
No.
But that all the men was dead. They were in a marshy place, and they weren't in the main gut, but it was marshy. And so after we got the fire out, I told the boys, I was in charge. I had 15, 20 men on the truck there coming there and helping me. And I said, I'll put on this asbestos suit and go in there, and I could see a man laying right up on top, but about half of him was sunk down in the mud.
Wow.
I went in there and had this asbestos suit, and of course the boys were sitting there with the foam, ready to throw on me. And I walked up close to him enough, and I got him under the head, and his head felt like it was going to be burnt bad. He was dead. And but another sailor, he come in. Now he was one that transferred away from him. I don't remember his name, but he come up to me, and I had his asbestos suit, and of course I had a big glass in front of my face, and he grabbed my arms right here, and I walked up close enough to get him in the arm, and when we pulled him up, I bet fire run up 20 feet, right up. It was gasoline under it.
Yeah.
And them boys stowed, and that boy, all he done just like this, and we had to do a boat face, and I pushed him around and pointed him out, and as soon as I got him moving, a little of the boys run out and got him. But he survived. I never did see him no more. They transferred him in Mertzbed to a place in Texas. And 2 weeks from that night, they had another one do the same thing, only it cracked in the woods over Atlantic. And I went over there in the Seagrave truck and then run down to the woods and got there. And it must have been, she landed in the woods, and she must have burnt. It wasn't a piece of the body that left, just the pieces. I picked up fingers with rings on them and all that stuff. So the next morning, that happened about 1:29, I think it was, when that alarm went off. And the next morning, the gal had come down there in a truck and had sandwiches for us. Myself and the rest of the boys with me, we sat down on the running boards and leaned up against there and eat sandwiches. Never even washed their hands.
Oh.
And no. See, when you're young,
You gotta think about germs.
you're pretty tough like that. But now, if I was to do it, I wouldn't eat for 2 weeks.
Oh. No.
Yeah, but I often think about that. But those boys, it was impossible for them to identify them and get them back to their people. Now they got them back some way, but the poor they had, because it was everybody was blowed and burnt to pieces.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, what did they also patrol for aircraft, that unidentified aircraft?
Yeah. One night, this was later on, and it was in 43, but the OD sent the Queenie. He was in the office there. Most of us had bunked in, and he said, Queenie wants you over to the office right away. And I went over there, and Harv Cullen, you remember Harv Cullen? Harv Cullen was one of them, and I think Goat Trifer was one of them.
Heard of him.
And I forgot who the other one was. 3 or 4 of us. And we went in there. We didn't know what we were looking for. As soon as we got in there, Queenie reached us a shotgun and a 45 put on her side. He said, I want you boys load up. Had a pile of us on a Jeep. But 3 or 4 of us went besides him, and he was driving. He was a commander at that time. He was the head man there. That was before Frederick Smith come there. And we met our army from Camp Fletcher over here on the Ridge Road. it was a young lieutenant driving her, and when they got to Horntown, Queenie stopped his Jeep, and they didn't know how to get across the creek from the base. What they saw, I didn't know, none of us, they never told us what we were looking for. But they'd seen a spotlight going, and they thought it was somebody sending signals to some subs offshore here.
Right.
And the planes took off looking for stuff out there. And so, anyway, we got to Horntown. Queenie asked me, he said, do you know how to get in there? I said, yeah. And Goat said, yeah, it's 2 ways you can get a Goat Traver. He said, well, Goat, you stay in here with me, Navy man. And he told me to get in with the Army. So all them Army boys piled up on the back seat of that Jeep. They were too deep, I think. And I got up there with the lieutenant, and he started, it was on Morris Justice Farm over there.
Yeah.
And before you get to that, it was called Mosquito Point Farm. It was right across the creek from the base. And before you got to that, this lieutenant, he didn't know how to drive that Jeep. Well, I tore transmissions out of them, rebuilt them, all that stuff. He couldn't get her in four-wheel drive. I said, I'll shift her in there for you. He was awesome. Shift her in, man. She started kicking her front wheels in. And then Queenie come in the other way. And Goat told me afterwards, he said, Queenie, before he got up to this house, the farmhouse, and they had an old big barn, and there wasn't nobody living there. And they thought they were hid out in there. So anyway, but we still didn't know what was wrong. But he told Goat and 2 or 3 more in the Navy Jeep, he said, follow me. And Goat said he was running so fast, they were running fast, he couldn't keep up with it. Anyway, but when we pulled up there in the Army, we all jumped out, and they said, Queenie, the J.J. Queenie, the man in charge, he said, well, we're looking for somebody in this barn. Come over to the office, and I went to the office, and I went in, he introduced me to 2 FBI men. He said, Hall, he could call everybody by their last name. He said, Hall, said, you know that neighborhood, that's the reason you wanted the local men. He said, you know that neighborhood. Said, these is FBI men. Said, they want you to take them over there. And I spent a half a day with them, going through them woods where them old farmers had raked up pine shats and stuff, and and twigs that fell off in trees, and
Right.
put some stuff in it where they were getting shats for the, because there was they were using a lot of horses then you needed for
Right.
bedding in stables. And but them FBI talked, they didn't tell me no lot, but they went to every one of them big places where they'd pile up and raked them down and looked, see if there's something, but they didn't find nothing.
They thought it.
But after they told me what they were looking for, but we had all such stuff as that. It was good, and I that boy in the middle there, he run a crane over to Norfolk before we went in, and we got a Bay City with a 50-foot boom on her. And he taught me how to use it. And I've used it one night, and he was using it next. So one night they called me. I was on duty, and we had men then taking care of the fire department. And so it was a plane, Navy plane from this station, a single-engine plane. She was going towards Chrisfield, and she run out of gas, and she on that straight road from Marion Station to Chrisfield.
Right.
Was a straightaway through there. They put a new road through there instead of wandering around. And he threw his landing gear up and landed on her belly. And they wanted this crane up there to so anyway, it was my duty to carry her up there. And there was 2 young sailors there, but younger than I was. I was about 23 or 4. And anyway, there was a single cab on it, but they stood up. They were young men, about 18, 19, slim. Anyway, we went down there, and on the way to Pocomo that night, it was getting late, close to midnight, and I cut down 11 telephone lines between the base, with that 50-foot boom, and she was down on a bar. You couldn't put her no lower. So when I got up there to Pocomo, I'd count them. There were 11 telephone lines I'd cut down. Never did hear nothing from it. but see, they were sagging across the road, didn't have much clearance. It was nighttime and you couldn't see them.
You couldn't see them.
But see them when you hear them snap and see them fall. So it weren't electric wires, weren't no electric
phone
wires.
lines.
So when they got up there before we got to Pocomoke, it was a vacant lot there where that bypass weren't there around Pocomoke. You had to go right to Pocomoke.
Right, across the river.
I pulled, there was a vacant lot there. And I pulled a little old Bay City in there and jumped up in the electric part, the higher there, and started my engine and switched that boom, stuck it right back, 50 foot. But I put it lower so it wouldn't hit no more planes. And when you get up to Westover, we're going on the way to Marion Station, the railroad track come there. And they had one of these cross signs on railroad track. So I didn't know it would happen. But since you had such a long 50-foot back of me, see, I couldn't see that old baby. Anyway, when I come back that night, I looked, I said, good land, I knocked that sign, I switched that, faced it the other way. But anyway, when I got up there, I swung that Bay City. I could operate it just good as a professional, because you're young, you catch on that stuff. And this old boy taught me. And anyway, the chief that was in that squadron in planes, he was up there before I was and had several men with him. They were waiting me to come up with this Bay City. And so I turned around, put the hook over him, run the boom in front of him so I could watch him. And he said, pick her up, said, pick her up just a little and drop her. And I picked her up like that eye and drop her. He looked up at me, he said, I said, pick her up and drop her. And well, that kind of upset me a little. I picked her up about 7 or 8 feet and I dropped her, but she did. See what it was, they cranked their landing gear down after I picked her up, and they wanted to make sure it was holding for the roller. They didn't want her to fall again. But that landing gear, she had her locked in good, but because they had to do it with crank, couldn't do it with electric. And anyway, it was all kinds of stuff like that. But we had it nice over there. And then later on, they transferred me to a South Annex receiving station, and they got me in the garage there. I worked there till the war was over. But they just signed me to auxiliary oiler up in North Atlantic, but I didn't go. The war was over about 2-3 weeks before that. But I was signed waiting for that ship to come back to the States to go. So that's the only reason I didn't go. But
did the Navy ever hit any submarines out here? Did they ever shoot any?
Oh, yeah. It was a man from Chincoteague. I forgot his name now. I didn't know him at that time. But he was a Coast Guardman. Yeah. They did knock one out off. It wasn't right off of Chincoteague. It was a little bit north.
Well, Pete always said, well, he was in the Coast Guard. He enlisted in that. It was draft. That's the word I was looking for. You either they were going to draft you in the Army, or you better join another branch if you didn't want walk. Yeah. Anyway, he said that it was somewhere around New York that a sub went in there, and they went to stores and bought newspapers and stuff because it got blowed up out in Atlanta. Yeah. And these newspapers from New York City came out of that sub. So they knew those people had been aboard in New York when they blowed it up.
But getting back to that, taking that Bay City up there to Westover, Marion Station, that night, I told you it was 2 young sailors went with me. And I didn't know them. Didn't know them because there's many of them in there that I wasn't familiar with all of them. But I knew them in the song.
Right.
Anyway, they went with me. About 30 years after that, I was up there in the garage. I told you I stayed there 20 years.
Right.
And Russell Clark, he was driving a truck for Burton Seafood.
Yes.
And he was up in upstate New York, and I forgot what city, Buffalo or somewhere out there. And he was backing in an alley, and a policeman was holding the traffic up while they had to back in because the traffic couldn't get by, and he had to back into the platform, and he ended up with this tractor sideways like that,
Right.
So the policeman walked over to Russell, said, I see you see Chincoteague on this truck. Said, do you know George Hall? He said, yeah, I think I do. He said, he works on these trucks. He said, well, you tell him. And he said, I'll know he'll remember this, that I was one of them boys went with him that night that he picked that plane up. And he said, you tell him that I'm coming to see him. And I said, well, Russ, I'm glad you told me. I said, I remember the boy, but I forgot his name. So bicentennial year, 76, he and his mother was real bad off. She was down there expecting her to die in time. and I was home by myself late one afternoon, about dusk dark, and he pulled up there, had his wife with him. They had a little child, and he weren't married when he was in the Navy.
Right.
And his wife come in, and I showed them. I had my antique place in. I showed them that, and they stayed the longest kind of time for it. And
Wow.
he was going to retire one more year, and he was going to Florida. But his wife said, "My dear," said, "I'm glad he got to see you." Said he'd been talking about you for 30 years.
How about that? That's great. That's
So,
wonderful.
so I met him, but he never did come back. I don't know what happened to him. He was in Florida, but he was a nice fella.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was glad to see him, but I thought that was so unusual. Russ Clark run into a man like that.
That's right. You never know.
But the man told him, he said that he'll know who we're talking about. So I did, yeah. But we had some good old times over there, but a lot of it was a lot more to it than you think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now, at one time over at the base, where that bypass is, you used to have to go right through the base to get in and over to Chincoteague, right?
Yeah. Well, the way it was when I went over there, and you still done it, they hadn't cleared it up then. They hadn't put the road around through the base. You went, when you hit the mainland, you went straight on up, and there was a barrel house over on the corner that everybody used to call it the barrel house corner. And this boys from Pocomoke would come down here, and for girl, and this was about 37, 38. I wasn't very old, and we'd race. And one old boy, he had a tire plane, and I had a new Chevrolet, but the Chevrolet didn't have no top speed. That tire plane could outrun me, but I'd beat him Pocomoke. So going around them barrel house corners and all them crooks and corners,
Yeah.
I had more nerve. I'd outrun him. But yeah, we had a time there, and it was nice. Yeah. But I had a lot of memories of that place, and anyway, when I used to come on Chincoteague, one time I was courting Ruby, remember White, and Neoma Juster had that store down there where J&B's is, and she was the lady running it. I don't know whether her husband died or what, anyway, but she run it by herself. And a bunch of people was sitting around on the front porch, and I had a brand new Ford Chevrolet, and I come on Chincoteague about half crazy. I got off of work. When I turned to the right on Chincoteague and then go down to Neoma's store, which is right close to a mile, I'd open that thing up. She was running about 83 miles an hour. Went by there. And I've often thought how dumb that was. How about some old person started across the road or somebody pulled out. Anyway, I went by there and didn't even see the men sitting on the porch. And when I picked Ruby up, about 15 minutes later, I come back. This little short, fat man took down the road and flagged me down like that. And I asked Ruby, I said, "Who is he?" She said, "He's the mayor." I said, "Uh-oh." And he come up around over here. It was summertime. I had the window down, threw his elbows up on. Said, "Young man," said, "You come by here a while ago?" I said, "Yeah, a while back I did come by here." And he said, "Well, let me tell you something." He said, "The next time that I catch you, you're going to jail." Well, that scared me to death. And after that, when the evening Turk was on, had two policemen, and they had an old 37 Chevrolet. I could outrun them. But every time I come on Chincoteague and I'd look in my rear mirror, and they'd be right back. I was trailing. They trailed me for 6 months, but I kept my speed down.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
George, did you feel that people were scared here during the war? Were people on Chincoteague scared?
Were they afraid?
Were people afraid that Germans were going to land on the
Attack them?
coast here or something? Were people scared?
Oh yeah. A lot of people. They were expecting this place to be blown up. Yeah. Now right after the war, I started describing 4 to 6. But you remember Bill Lewis used to be a mechanic?
Yes.
Well, I'd rented the garage right across from when Jack Hurley had it.
Yeah. Pete worked there too.
Yeah. Jack Hurley was in it when I was first coming on here. But he built his place over on Buttons Road, and the old man, I can't think of his name now, owned that building, and I rented it from him in '46. But a little while after that, I got Bill Lewis in there to working. He was working for me. I still had garage, and I'd be in there a lot of nights. I went to work for the government, and a civil service job, and they transferred me to Wallops Beach, and we had to load up on a boat at Queen Sound and run down there for 2-3 years. But down to the other end of the beach, they used to ferry back or forwards across there in a boat. I remember when
Right.
the bridge there, but I was
Right down there where Mapsville, behind the
Yeah.
back of Mapsville, was the old ferry dock.
yeah.
And that's what they ferried back and forth across.
Yeah. And we boys used to. I had 14 men working there. I was the head one of the mechanics down there, and then when Alan Talbot was the head of the carpenters, and but I had 14 men, and it was impossible to keep all them busy. But the public works officer, I knew him, and because he's the one put me down there. And I told him, I said, it's impossible for me to keep all them men. 2 good men could have done what them 14 done. And he said, well, he said, I bring big shots down from Washington once in a while. Every month or two, they'd come down, they'd be around there. He said, I'll tell you what I'll do. He said, I'll call you before I come. He said, when we come, said, you look busy and all your men, whether you are or not. I said, I said, his name was Smith. I said, okay, Captain Smith. I said, I'll do that. And that's what it was. But I worked there till 1952. And 52 in the spring, I thought myself, it was a construction coming in there. Robert T. Main Company from Salem, Virginia, and they coming in there, and the boys was going to work for them was making double what I was making, and I knew I was going back to the garage business, and anyway, I went to see Ann Lumley's mother. They owned that filler station in town, and Lucius Kellum. You remember Lucius?
Uh-huh.
He's the one was in charge of Main One putting that bridge tunnel in down there. Yeah, you're a nice man. Went dressed up all the time. Anyway, she said, you go see Lucius Kellum. Said he's been renting that place from us for a number of years. And tell me how to find a fella he was, which she was right on that. He was a fine fella. And she said, if he says you can have it, you can have it. So anyway, Earl Stevens, he'd quit his civil service job, and he went to the Methodist Church, and Ann's mother went to the Methodist Church. Well, see, I knew that. But anyway, Kellum called me in 2-3 weeks. When I went to see him about it, he said, and I was still working for the government, then I had a government job, and I told him what I was going to do. I was going to make work 2-3 years with there and double my money, and sometimes I'd make 3 times as much as those making the civil service. And anyway, he said, George, I've checked him out, and the first time he'd ever seen me, he didn't know me, but he'd done a lot of investigating, and he said, you're the man I want to have it. And I said, okay. I quit my civil service job and went over there to work for the Robert T. Main Company, and I was the head mechanic there, and had several men working on that big heavy equipment and stuff. And they extended the runway out and cut a lot of woods, and there was big dips in there. Filled it on. They had these big Laterna poles that operated with everything electric, no steering wheels. They could get up on them. I drove them. They had little things stick out.
Like little joysticks.
Yeah. You stick out your finger and just put on the steering, and they'd run 35 miles an hour across the field with 35 tons on them. Whoa. And they were anyway. Kellum come to see me one morning. I never will forget it. He come in there, and he always went dressed in a full suit. He said, George, I'm in trouble. I said, what do you mean, Mr. Kellum? He said, and I was with the company then. He said, I went back to talk with Ann's mother, Lumley. Her name was Lumley. And she was in the Bunton family. And she said she told me that his lease was never up. Said she weren't going to give him another lease unless he let Jeff Stevens, not Jeff.
Earl.
Yeah. Anyway, he said, and I told her, I said, well, I promised that man, and he's quit his job, and Stevens didn't. He said, you ought to have it. He said, well, you do it, but you'll not get another contract, and it'll run out in a month or two. So I said, he said, but I'll tell you what I'll do. He said, I'll let them keep it. I said, no, Mr. Kellum, I said, don't do that. I said, go ahead and rent it to him. I said, go ahead, at least they let Earl Stevens have it. So when that contract run out, I made a deal with Albert. He added on this 20-foot wide L shape all the way around that filling station. I'd already made a deal with him, was in there working. And Jeff Stevens went to work. He didn't last 6 months. I mean, not Jeff Stevens. Earl Stevens. He didn't last 6 months before he was ready to get out because he didn't know about automobiles and nobody didn't fool with him none, other than just get a little gas there from him. Anyway, so a little while after that, I was in there working one morning. Well, Ann Lumley's mother's brother, he was part owner in that too, but Ann's mother had to make it. I wouldn't have it if you give it to me rent free and give me a 10-year contract. Stay there. I said, I'm not even interested in it. It's a wonder I hadn't lead on him, but more than that, but I didn't. I suspect his age, but I didn't think much of Ann Lumley's mother since. But that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. She didn't care whether I was out and had big ditches or what after that. But I was going to build one, and I told Albert, I said, I already bought a piece of land up there where Libertine is going to build, but I hesitated to build it for
Right. But where you went into business there at Albert's is where the Church Street Supply is now.
Yeah.
Right there. It used to be Knox's service station.
And the water come in it, and more storm. My son, I just bought him a new 62 Thunderbird, brand new. I put her up on my bar machine, the water got all in the floor of her. And I had a 60 Chevrolet convertible with the 348 in there with 3 2s on her, had everything on her. And I jacked her up with end jacks in there. The water come in that garage 49 inches deep.
Oh, my
See,
goodness.
they had white block walls. And I had 1 or 2 buckets of oil sitting around there where I'd change cars the day before and never would pour it in that canal. They used to let you do it. And in fact, the town used to come to me and get me to save oil from them, and they'd pour in these glades for mosquitoes. They'd hang you if you do it now.
Oh, Lord, yeah. Environmentalist. Good.
Yeah,
Right,
but they left on them white walls that them couple buckets of oil.
The mark.
Just like you'd paint a water line around the boat, and on the door facing the wood up around the door went in over in the filling station part, had wood trimming on it, and I took a screwdriver when I painted them walls. I painted them dark blue up after that storm, and I scratched across there 49 inches, and that stayed there till George Young remodeled it, and Albert put on the other side where you come out in the garage. In there, he put up there, through this wall you will find George Hall. and the Tommy Mason still mentioned that it'd be, and a lot of them young boys, then they'll mention to me.
They were responsible for writing down the numbers on these planes, and that was during the war.
Yeah. Well, see, they didn't have no carnival during the war.
No, they didn't. That's right.
No, because
But
I
she
remember.
said she did that. That was her job.
Yeah.
That she would go up there and she had so many hours that she'd have to go, and she would have to monitor all the planes and stuff that she would see
That
flying
was
over.
Freddie Tauber's mother. Yeah. And one time, Bill Tom used to work with me for 3 years, and before he built his garage, he was there when the storm was in '62, and he after that storm he quit and went over there and built his garage. Because Dr. Kellum, I was talking with him, and I was down at the hospital for a checkup, and he said, I'm going to keep you overnight. And Bill Tom was in there bad off. And I said, well, I'd like to go see him. He said, well, tomorrow morning I'll go show him. Bill didn't make it. And he said, I'll go show him. I said, well, yeah, he's worked with me. I said, he worked with me 3 years. He said, what'd you do, teach him trade? And he left. I said, I didn't say that, Doc. I didn't say it. But he didn't. He died the next morning.
Mine.
Yeah.
I miss meeting him. I used to meet him every day on
Yeah.
like East Side Road.
But Peggy, it's a woman on I won't tell you the name. Peggy, she threw it on me when I moved up there to Libertinas. And so the lady on here now, I wouldn't call her name because I'm gonna call her no hard feeling. She'd come in the garage door. Said, George, said, every time I go up the Chicken City Road and go by your new garage, said, I meet Peggy. Said, she's checking on you, see if you got any
If you got any business.
But she may add that hit Peggy may not done
No,
that.
she might not have.
But she was, I guess she was trying to get me hyped, but I didn't. You know, best friend me. I don't believe you caused trouble.
No. I always found you very, very easy to get along with. And willing to help somebody.
I worked 40-some years and then I had the independent dealer's license after that. And I never had no trouble with nobody. I didn't have no trouble with nobody. And a lot of people treated me. There was one old fella in the Bunton family. I can tell you this was an old time in the way. He left Chincoteague. I didn't even meet him till late years. And he come in the garage, he didn't like nobody. And his family didn't like him. And he'd done everything. And when he died, he got this colored man up here at the new church for to embalm him and have his funeral. He done that for to spite his family.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. But anyway, he come in the garage there. Didn't live too far from there when he moved back here. He was an older man then. A lot older than I was at that time. And when he'd put the Chincoteaguers down, man, he'd be laying on them. He come in there one morning and had an old man up there just past the church, and just past that last driveway. I'd done a job for him, and when they got ready to pay me, it was just a small amount of money. And anyway, it was 25 or 50 cents over even money. Say it was, but the bill was $20.50 or $25.50. I just give him change didn't even put change. The old man got home and walked back over there and said, "Oh, you shortchanged yourself. It was just a few cents change left over," which I knew it. I said, "No, that's all right." Anyway, that old man come in talking next day. I said, "Now I'm gonna show you a man's honest." I said, that old man walked back in, he was 75 years old that time, at least. I said, and to bring me, he didn't think that I took the amount that was on his bill. And you know what he said to me? If it'd been $25, he wouldn't walk back over here. But I think the old man would. Yeah, he was an honest old man.
They were.
But he hated everybody. But that's the only man back in those days that I saw go to have a colored undertaker. Well, there's nothing wrong with it. No, that wasn't nobody got to do business. But they said he hated his family, so he done that for the spite them. Yeah, I knew them all back in those days.
You have a question?
Good old days.
George, I wanted to ask you again I wanted to follow up on Ellen's question about the watchtower. Was that something the women did at the carnival grounds?
Well, I don't remember that time. I don't remember because I was here part time, and that part time I was in Norfolk, and I don't.
So you didn't experience that.
But I remember who he's talking about. Fred Talbert's mother. I remember her. Yeah, now I'm pretty sure because she took an active part in most anything. She did it with carnival.
Yeah, and Anna Jester, Lawrence Jester's wife said she also done it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I knew Lawrence did.
Said she did that too.
Yeah.
But and back then, didn't they darken their windows? Didn't they pull curtains? So I mean.
Oh yeah, and on the headlights.
Blackout, they call it.
On the headlights on the car. Everybody had to take the a round headlight. They paint across top of it, half of it black.
Huh.
Yeah.
So that you only could see the bottom of it was shine down on the ground and not up.
Yeah. I painted many one of them. Seen them, a lot of them painted.
Because I heard them talk about they'd have to keep everything dark in the house.
They closed curtains on there. Yeah. Street lights and everything else.
Everything was shut down.
You didn't burn no excess lights on there.
That's the reason why with the Coast Guard, when they did this, they patrolled the creeks and the inlets, and that's what they did, looking for submarines.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's what they carried us over there. You know, that night they were saying lights. I didn't know what we were going over there for, but this was Camp Fletcher that down here. Over
Right.
at
They thought they
Amherst.
probably had somebody that came ashore was hiding.
Yeah, yeah, and they thought that was somebody ashore sending them signals. So the FBI men told me that after they didn't find them, but I know what it was, and I told them. I said, "There's probably Morris Juster over there. He was a big farmer, and he had trucks with spotlights on them. It was some of their help.
So how long do you recall how long Camp Fletcher was here?
They didn't stay too long after war. No, they soon put it was a temporary building they put up there.
Right down here on this corner where Miss Amron's house is.
That's right. Camp Fletcher. And that Mr. Fletcher, he used to run the place where you remember John Gallagher run that restaurant.
Yes.
Fletcher was in there before that, and that was his son got killed.
Charles.
He was the first one got killed on
Wasn't
Shincoteague.
he a brother to Helen Birch?
Yep, that's right. That's right. Yeah, he was. And his father, I knew him well. And I used to, back in it was in the 50s, I bought me a vacation trailer and I'd take her up those city and Ruben himself go up there. And one time we left her under the standpipe there at the tank. Yeah. And he run a little beer joint there. And I didn't drink beer or drink nothing. But anyway, he'd come over there to the camp. He said, "George, come over tonight. We'll throw a party. I'll furnish all the beer you drink."
Yeah.
I said, "Thank you, Mr. Fletcher," but I don't fool with it. He was a nice old fella, but he thought that was everybody's supposed to drink it.
They liked their spirits back then, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, he was an old timer.
Yeah.
But he was a nice old fella. I remember John Gallagher's daughter,
Grace Ann.
wife was his daughter.
Yes, that's right. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the reason John got the business when he moved out. Because I remember one time going on there, Elwood Taylor and myself, he was 2 or 3 years younger than us. I was old enough to buy beer, and I was just 18. I could go in there and buy. And they looked at Elwood, and he was bigger and taller than I was. And they turned him down. Man, he laid a cuss on them. He wanted that. And that poor fella come knocked on my door about 15, 20 years ago one Sunday. And I opened the door. I said, "Oh, Elwood," I hadn't seen him in a long time. And he lost his wife. And he came back. He said, "George, we're the only old timers left around Pocomoke that, grew up in that." And he was right on it. So I said, "Come on in." He said, "No, I got my girlfriend in here." I knew he'd lost his wife. He said, "I got my girlfriend in your car." I said, "Go get her." He brought her in. Ruben himself sat there and talked to her, and she married him. And but they didn't live together 6 months before that flew to pieces. So the one of his daughters runs a tire place up here at New Church. She used to run up there across the Midway, but her husband died. She moved down to New Church.
Carlton's? Was the name Carlton's?
Yeah. Anyway. This boy married Bill Tom's daughter. They separated, and he got hung up with her, and so I met him up there to her sale. She had a sale across the Midway, and they had a lot of Model A Ford engines and stuff. And I went up there, was interested in them, and I got talking with him. I said, "Yeah," I said, "the old one myself used to be good friends." I said, "They tell me he's." I said, "I knew he'd lost his wife." I said, "They tell me he's." He was telling me he was going to get married again. He said, "Yeah." He said, "About time." Said he'd been running there for 20 years. I never forget that.
Yeah.
But that didn't last. And first thing you know, he died.
Right.
So some things, some unusual things happen back.
Yeah.
But anything can happen. So if you have any questions, anything I know that
All right.
I
We
can.
appreciate that
Yeah,
very much.
that's great, George. Thank you.